Slow connection. Who's playing with the internet? Am I live? I think it shows live. Manage links. Oh, what's here? Okay. I'm just coming from TikTok. I just did a TikTok live and there was just so many buttons. At some point I was very confused. I had to tag Rugamba here because he asked me to tag him when I come on Facebook. But it's showing me that I have a slow connection. I wonder how visible I am. It's extremely low. Hi Naomi, I can see you in the corner. Oh my god, I didn't put up the question. Is this something editable? I'm gonna try to put it here. I don't know if I can pin it. Oh, okay, great. So we're gonna try to pose the question that I asked on TikTok. Do you think conversations on... Oh my god, why does it keep saying I have a slow connection? Do you think conversations on boundaries are important in relationships? In the comment. Alright. So I asked that question. I asked if people believe that it's important for us to have conversations on setting boundaries in a relationship. And there were a few points that were shared. I was there with a certain Low Prime and a Jeff. We had a brief conversation there that was mostly inspired from this. So this is the Teen Personal Development Journal. Hi Derek, you're welcome to the live. The question is inspired by this because I do not really expect to have teens on the live. And it's not like I allotted you guys to bring your teens on live, and I'm not even sure if when I have viewers, all of them are teenagers. So the question that I ask is a prompt that I've had to kind of redo for the adult version. So for the very first conversation, as you can see in the table of contents, Jesus, this book is big. What? It's like I can barely fit with it in the camera. The very first chapter in the journal, the Teen Personal Development Journal, is discovering and setting boundaries as a teenager. And the question that I get to ask the adults is whether we think having conversations on setting boundaries is important in hold on, there are people who think they aren't. Yeah, actually when I was on the TikTok live, you learned some shit. Yes. Because you see, even when we're having I learned on the job when I was pushed to the level of contemplating suicide. There are people that don't know these things. Some of us like the common adage that experience is the best teacher, you know. So yeah, there are people that don't know these things. So Arnold, since you already know that these conversations are important, can you help us break it down further? Do you have a personal experience? Did experience teach you this, or do you feel like you had divine knowledge about how to go about relationships? How did it come up? Is it a conversation you've had? How does it go around? Because personally, I was asking on TikTok, how do you go about asking these questions? Let's say you're on a date, you know. I also highlighted the fact that when I'm watching Pop the Balloon or Find Love, when I hear some questions, I'm like, how do you even answer that? So I wonder what kind of questions would come up in a relationship if you're on a date with someone, perhaps when you're trying to understand them. Do you get to ask questions on boundaries, or do you just learn on the job in a relationship that this is what someone is interested in, this is what works for them, these are things they don't want to compromise, and therefore I shouldn't? Can you really, really, really have a conversation prior to meeting madness in the relationship? Someone on TikTok asked whether it doesn't cause a divide, and I had to explain that myself, I had to learn after going to the point of contemplating suicide. So how do you think people usually go about that? Do they ask questions? Do you just learn on the job? Do you first get heartbroken and realize you're a people pleaser? How do we go about setting boundaries in relationships? Is it through communication when someone does something? Do you think it's something that you can have in a prior to dating conversation? Slow connection again. People who are already married, I think they would be the best people to tell us. Is it a conversation that you've had? Boundaries. Does it cause a rift when you set boundaries? I think it's for us to even learn, those that haven't gotten into permanent relationships. Melvin, you're watching. You're welcome. Do you think it's important to have conversations on boundaries when you are starting a relationship? Do you think it's possible to have these conversations? Are they important? Or would you rather wing it and learn on the job? Do you think it's possible for us to have conversations prior to, getting things serious? This kind, like, as far as setting boundaries is concerned. My goodness. Mwana mutidde okwogera. Muli batiitiizi. Although you guys have been winging it and you don't want to have conversations on setting boundaries, they make you uncomfortable. Call out. Do you think conversations and boundaries are important in relationships? I know things it's crazy that people don't know that. Someone on TikTok thought it could cause a rift. What do you think? Are they important to have, or do you just wing it? Slow connection. Who is interacting with my internet? Let's try to have an exploration of the very first prompt of the Teen Personal Development Journal on setting boundaries. Discovering and setting boundaries as a teenager is the very first chapter. And this is where the kind of adulting question is coming in from. So the very first prompt for the teenagers who have these copies, they're in some houses so far, in some teens' hands already. For those who had to buy copies and send them straight to their schools. So the very first prompt is, have I ever felt uncomfortable doing something? What do I feel comfortable doing? And of course, these were written looking at my personal experiences a little bit, mostly as an adult, because I think most of the behaviors or mannerisms that we carry with ourselves stem from our childhood experiences as well. So when you ask a teen if they have ever felt uncomfortable doing something, what do I feel, and then also asking what they feel comfortable doing. If you had to ask this question, and I really understand why some adults are almost want to do a petition to ask for their adult version. Some are saying things like, remove the word teen. I want this for myself. Can I use it? I think right now is when I thought about it. If you ever ask this question to Cassie, and this is in light of the testimonies given in the DD Cares, if she was ever asked if she has ever felt comfortable doing something, and what does she feel comfortable doing, I think she would have a whole book written. This space right here, I don't think it would be enough for her. And so that's why I end up asking the adults if they think conversations on boundaries are important in relationships. And when I was there on TikTok, Loprine talked about the importance of having these boundaries and even going as far as self-awareness. And he said that when you're in self-aware, people are going to take you for a ride. And I was like, here is me. Oh, before I put this back, I'm having the heritage print. Can I hold it like this? Oh yeah, I'm having the heritage print copy right here. It is one of the covers of the Teen Personal Development Journal. There is the floral tapestry. There is also the geometry tribal. And if you want to have a look at them, I don't want to touch people's books that are going out. So I'm mostly using this as the sample copy going around for conversations and for potential buyers to just touch and peruse. So prompts like, have I ever felt doing something I'm uncomfortable with? What do I feel comfortable doing? I think most of us, we find ourselves in positions where we are just people pleasers as adults. And yet if we had conversations at our teenager level, maybe, just maybe, some of us wouldn't have ended up in relationships that had us contemplating suicide. So that's why I ask, do you think conversations and boundaries are important in relationships? Personally, I know they're important, but then how to have these questions, rather these conversations, is also another ball. Like, how do you go about it? That's how I way you touch it. How long can I give you? I could stay on for a bit while I wait. How do you think people can really have conversations on boundaries in relationships? Because personally, if I didn't have boundaries, what did I say? If I had boundaries and self-respect, I think most of the things that I had to weather in that relationship, I wouldn't have seen them. Sometimes I even wonder if I should call that relationship abusive, because I feel like when I thought back on my hand in my suffering, it almost feels like I was equally abusive to myself. So maybe we can still call it an abusive relationship. I think most of the times when you're talking about abusive relationships, we mostly have it, we have the abuse directed to the other party, and I'm just thinking right now that it's also possible to have an abusive relationship with yourself, actually. Yeah. When you do not have self-respect and all those things, where you're crying about people causing you so much pain, and yet you keep going back, hearing Cass's testimony talking about things like, I didn't want to be involved in the freak-offs, but I wanted to protect him so that he does not feel like his fetishes are weird. Like, no, ain't no way you did that. Do you have self-respect for yourself, you know? Yeah. But I'm really curious, if you were to have conversations on boundaries, what is that thing that you would, how would this conversation play out? Is it to be a conversation, or do you just have these things on the job? Are there generic questions that you get to ask when you're trying to understand someone? Loprine on TikTok shared that it could be inferred from values, where you get to ask someone what their values are, and you can have an idea of whether they have boundaries or not. But I'm really curious about how that works. Let me see what Anna is saying here. It's not about, oops. It's not about when you lay them bound. Oh, it's not about when you lay them boundaries, be it beginning or a middle, whatever. Boundaries aren't on a schedule. Courtship is a game of finesse. Kwegamba, or kubeera direct and clear. Why does this comment keep disappearing? Kubeera direct and clear, but smooth with it. Be assertive, naye ng'ate vibe togise. Early on, you can drop the basics playfully. Why does this thing keep disappearing every time I touch the screen? What is going on? I can't read the comment fully. What's happening? Early on, you can drop the basics playfully, but most boundaries show up in what equal job. I also think you, because I was really curious, how did you have this conversation from the onset? But most boundaries show up in what equal job. Some shit you do, you don't even know is a deal breaker until it happens. That's true. Kati ekisinga okuba ekyomugaso is that lag between when someone crosses a line and when you speak. Keep it short. The longer you wait, the more you think it's okay. Whether they mean it or not. I think so. Naomi, let me just carry this. Some of us tell us. I think I can really relate. When you say that sometimes you don't even know some things are a deal breaker until they happen. I've seen my ideal partner lists change over time, and it's like the things that you get to see when you're like, so that's even possible? So okay, so now we have to add that as well. So I'm also thinking that maybe it's more of, I've just thought maybe it's a thing of where people usually ask, what are your non-negotiables? I think that's a question that you ask on the onset of the relationship. I don't know, but I think that's where you get to have an idea. Sometimes you might not know, like Arnold pointed it out. Sometimes you might not know at the beginning or whatever stage you're at until something happens, because we keep growing and evolving. If you're in your in the shoes of starting a relationship, do you think you would have conversations on setting boundaries? If you were once in a relationship and you realize later on, towards maybe the end of it or at the end of it or somewhere in the middle, that perhaps you should have set boundaries, what was your experience like? Hi, Diane. Diane, do you think conversations on boundaries? Diane already says, Menachako. Do you think it's important? Do you think it's important to have conversations on boundaries with Chaco? Oh my goodness. Diane, we're having a conversation on boundaries inspired by the very first chapter in the Teen Personal Development Journal. Oops, yeah. And what we're asking right now is whether these conversations are important at the onset of the relationship. Initially, I thought that maybe it's hard to bring up such conversations and you just learn on the job, like Nantamu shared earlier, to have to give you a brief experience of the first page. The very first prompt to the teenager is, have I ever felt uncomfortable doing something with Shako? What do I feel comfortable doing? Vanonji should tell us if you can have conversations on boundaries with Chako, or do you just avoid like brandy rice here? Excuse me. I don't know, Samu. Whatever says that. Oh my goodness. Banunji, I know what says men are Chako because we are sadly here to be burnt by fire. Also known as Evanamwe. Oh my god. Oh my god. What time is it? It's almost 9. I think in 15 minutes I should close the live. And for those that find the replay, maybe they can just further the conversation. But before the 15 minutes reach, this is the Teen Personal Development Journal. I am very aware of the adults. I missed the beginning, boundaries. Adile, where do we begin? Boundaries are those things that preserve your dignity. Have I answered your question, Adile? So before the 15 minutes, we reach the 15-minute mark. This is me reminding you that we have a Teen Personal Development Journal, and it's now going at 65,000. So if you know a teen somewhere, could be in your family, could be your neighborhood, this is something for them. Right now I have the African Heritage print. Is it the Heritage print? Names keep confusing me. I need to first get used to these things. Right now I have the Heritage print, and if you want to have a look at the different covers, you can find them in the previous spot. There's the floral tapestry and the geometric tribal. Yeah, going at 65,000. Tell a neighbor to tell a neighbor to tell a neighbor to tell a cousin to tell a grandmother to tell an aunt to tell a mom and a dad that these are conversations in here that are very important for the growing teens, be it boys or girls. Was it last year when, could be earlier this year, when I saw someone suggesting that boys or men set boundaries better than women do. I had no idea that was true. But I've also heard stories from men, especially in their relationships, and the question is, how did you let that pass? But we all know, sometimes people say, if you hear what I do in relationships, brandy efa. How much is a copy? A copy goes at 65,000 right now. We had it going for 49 for how long? More than a month, I think. Right now it's going at 65,000. We also have an allowance of okay, this one wants to black out. We also have an offer of a workshop that will have mental health professionals, personal development coach that will be supporting teenagers that have these copies. So you can either pay for an independent copy, like I showed you here, or you can pay for the full package, going at it was 199 before. There's a second tier right there, but the very last tier, for the person that pays at the very last minute, will be paying 249,000. How many more minutes left? 11. Asaba, tell us about boundaries before you write a card. Tell us. Boundaries, relationships. What do you think of that? Adila, did I answer your question correctly? You think you have an idea? But I think you're playing games, you man. I do have boundaries. They must be exceedingly elastic, is it? And I think it is the same for everyone. That's like writing the rules and exceedingly elastic. I wonder what that looks like. Like you put them up and break them all at the same time. How does that really work? Exceedingly elastic? Self-preservation being exceedingly elastic? Dignity being elastic? I wonder how that looks like. Tyra Ivan, good evening, happy Sunday. We're about to end the live. 9 minutes now. And we are talking about, why are you strolling by? We are talking about conversations on boundaries in relationships. Do they matter? Have you set boundaries before? Adila, I'm very curious. That thing that you wrote, the boundaries being exceedingly elastic. How would it work? It almost, I don't know, correct me. This almost sounds like liking something and you really like it, and yet when someone says they don't like it, then that means you will not like it in that moment. Elastic, like they are indefinite. What I will not tolerate in the morning. Adile. No, that's not how. No, that's not how things work. Like what? Like being beaten? I hate Adile because I even just said what I said better. Ate mu bigambo bitono nnyo. I think my lack of I know why have you written that? Why have you written that, Arnold? I think we're understanding boundaries totally differently. And now seeing how shiftable, is that a word? Seeing how shiftable this could be. I'm very curious, like, so then what? No, I don't think boundaries are elastic. I need to find out, I need to study this more. Six minutes. Elastic? But Arnold, if you're saying that Adile has written that which he wanted to state, but he has done it as a summary of what you had written. Initially, you wondered if people indeed don't know how valuable boundaries are in a relationship. And yet, for this part where Adile says they're elastic, then it almost sounds like they're as good as non-being existent. And so where does that leave us? Where does that leave us? Kawa. You're very welcome to the live. Oze. Mbadde njagala kunoonyayo kisooka awo kyemba nteekawo awo. Oze ngenda kumaliriza. Naye kisoko kimbuze. The conversation that we're trying to have is on relationships and boundaries. Someone wondered if boundaries would strip people apart. Someone else felt like these are definitely supposed to be existent. And I was curious about how these conversations could be had. And some people were like, it leaves us without boundaries. That's basically what you're saying. And it's very confused. That's why I was like, I don't think this works. Adile, it makes sense what you've written. But then, if you're left without boundaries, does it mean you're now left in a state of people pleasing all the time? That you change with the weather, or change with the environment as a chameleon would. How elastic is your heart? Is loyalty a thing? Or is that also elastic? 15 minutes to the end of the live. But before we go, I'm still reminding you, we have this. Just a minute before my laptop falls. We have this. The Teen Personal Development Journal. It's the one that inspired the conversations that we're trying to have here. The very first chapter in the journal opens the teenagers to what discovering and setting boundaries looks like for them. And of course, the very first prompt was ease doesn't change. Have I ever felt comfortable doing something? Have I ever felt uncomfortable doing something? What do I feel comfortable doing? That's the very first prompt in this Teen's Personal Development Journal, and you can get it at 65,000. Oh, meanwhile, oh dear, I hope this thing is inside. The 65,000 or the purchase of the journal does not only come with a journal, it has extra materials provided. Now I'm trying to find that flyer and I don't know if it's right here. So when you purchase the Teen Personal Development Journal, you get extras right here. How do people do that? You get extras. You get a vision board, not you as an adult, the teenager. The teenager gets a vision board planner, a 5-minute gratitude sheet, a goal tracker, and a self-care bingo card. So you don't just purchasing this copy, you're getting extra materials to be supportive of your teen's personal development. And for that, good night. Oh, before I leave, let me say there's solid boundaries. Oh, I want to see this. There are solid boundaries are both solid and permanent and malleable. Most of them never change because it sounds like common sense to you. Some of them keep changing the more you grow and learn. I'm not exactly sure what I just said, but it is what I said. I kind of understand or kind of relate to what you're trying to communicate there, Arnold. Like I said earlier, I think this is something that you had also mentioned earlier, where you're like, some things first happen and you're like, wait a minute, I don't think this had to happen, or I shouldn't have tolerated that. I do understand where you're coming from with that. Some things you already know, and the others, and I think maybe like people said earlier, that you get to learn on the job. I guess communication or these comfort or discomforts is something that you can have as the relationship goes on. We have something from Opio Boniface. I think conversations about boundaries are one that should not be had unless necessary. Boundaries sets boundaries. It limits the relationship. The best way to set boundaries is through actions and expressions as the situation presents themselves. Yeah, I think that's where we get to see that you learn on the job, I guess. But the onset question, I think that Loprine shared on TikTok was having an understanding of someone's values and then probably have a conversation there. I think when you're scared of limiting, of having your relationship limited or fearing that it might fall apart, I think that's where things also start falling apart. In the end, they still fall apart. Because if you have to compromise your dignity, I think somewhere in the end, your chances that you're going to hate this person. That's just my thinking. We can follow the conversation in the replay. Goodbye. I wish you the very best of the week. And I hope we'll continue this conversation. Good night.